Assalamualaikum to Miss Adeline. My name is Nurdia Shahira binti Zaidi. Today, my group and I will be present to you about industrial policy in Malaysia. This video is divided into 9 parts. We can define industry policy as a strategic effort by the country to drive the development and growth of the economic sector. According to Pat and Segi 2006, industry policy refers to any types of selective intervention or government policy that attempt to alter the structure of production towards sectors that are expected to offer better economic growth prospects than would be possible without such intervention. While, according to Firdaus Rosli 2013, in the past, Malaysia's industrial policy seemed suited to the needs of the private sector and supported by the global economic climate. Then, he argues that the effectiveness of his industrial policy is based on major economic development in recent decades. For your information, since 1960, the development of the manufacturing sector in Malaysia has been implemented the direction of import-oriented activities. However, this strategy has been beginning to change in the 1970s, where more attention was being paid to export-oriented activities, viewing activities in import-oriented alternatives impede industrial development because Malaysia is considered to have a small market scope. Next, the goals industrial development in the 70s to the present was based on factors such as achieving the goal of the new economic policy, diversifying the industry, and others. The implementation of this policy expected to lay a strong foundation for Malaysia to become a developed industrial nation.
Hello everyone, my name is Nura Akila. Today, I would like to present about why the government create and execute the industrial policy in Malaysia, or in short, we call it as policy problems. So, let's go. For your information, global and domestic problems that confront to our industrial sector have made Malaysia become a strong and vibrant industry. There are so many types industries in Malaysia, for example, rubber, electronics, steel, petroleum, basic metals, and food processing. So we're gonna start with the first point, why Malaysia government create and execute the industrial policy. Firstly is to aim at ensuring a fair distribution of wealth between the race in Malaysia. It is because we are living in a country has different types of race. In 13 May, our country has experienced a racial riot, so that Malaysia government produced an EP and the objective is to eradicating poverty and making equally distributing of wealth among the race. This affirmative action type policy gives benefit in affecting current economies. For example, Industrial Coordination Act 1975. The function is to make sure the firms comply with an EP guidelines on ownership and employment so that we can avoid abuse of power. Next is to promote the development of manufacturing industry involving foreign markets and domestic markets. For export promotion industry policy, it is sending product or service to other countries to sell. This is also cover many types of the granting of tax incentives and holidays. We cannot deny that there have a lot of competition policy between foreign market and domestic market. In short, these kind of policy are important to promote export industry so that our export industry will be more consistent. Even it also can boost our country's economy development. Besides that, import substitution industrial policy is where bring goods or service into Malaysia from abroad for sale. From here, it will give more benefit to our country, which is get to introduce new and local product to market, and also reducing costs. It will be more affordable than producing them locally.
Hi, I want to explain main objective and goals of industrial policy. First, to increase industrial production. Second, to improve industrial development which leads economic growth. Third, to improve jobs opportunities and to reduce unemployment in Malaysia. And last, to establish healthy industrial development.
Okay, now let's proceed to the actors in the creation of the policy, or known as policy actor. Policy actor can be defined as a group of individuals who participate in policy process, which is they are the group that responsible and made every single policy in Malaysia. One of the actors that will be involved in the creation of the industrial policy is Prime Minister. Prime Minister has the highest and discretionary power to choose or make any preference of public policy in the country according to interests of the people. No one can reject or object the idea of Prime Minister except it was opposite what has stated in the Constitution of Malaysia. For example, this role was clearly played by Perwajar Terengganu Sedia Berhad when a joint venture involved 8 Japanese companies to the company, which is Nippon Steel 30%, Highcom, and State Prostate Development Corporation. This is why Tun Mahathir used look at this country to make sure the improvement of industrial policy in Malaysia. Next, the most important actor in this policy is Ministry Trade and Industry. They play a big role to carry out industrial policy goals. This ministry will collect and bring up together any opinion or idea related to industrial policy for discussion and debate in the parliament. Minister that responsible under this ministry is conducted by Azmin Ali and followed by his deputy. He play a big role to make sure the policy making process runs smoothly and without intervention from any party. Besides that, this ministry also will connect directly to the governmental and non-governmental agency for them to brief something regarding this policy. For example, KDNK will connect directly through the Minister Azmin Ali about the data financial statement of an export and import industry sector in Malaysia. From the information, they will estimate and discuss further what need to be stopped. Okay, now let's proceed to the last actor in this creation of industrial policy. The last actor that involved in this industrial policy is Malaysian Investment Development Authority, or known as MIDA. MIDA known as a government agency. In general, this organization has given the task by the government in order to oversee and drive investment into the manufacturing and service sector in Malaysia. But what is the responsible of MIDA in this industrial policy? MIDA has many responsibility in this policy, but to be more specific, they play a big role in these two tasks. Firstly, MIDA play a big role to advise the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, or known as MITI, regarding any issue that related to this policy, especially the formulation of policy. They have given the trust by providing information on the opportunities for investment as well as facilitating companies which are looking for joint venture partners. Any information or data made by MIDA about this policy will be reviewed and analyzed first before it sends to the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Because by making analysis and review first, it helps to avoid any mistake and problem that may happen during the process of the implementation. Because if any data error discovered during the process, it will give a big burden and effect, not just for the government, but to the whole country. For example, in the DEB of Tun Dr. Mahathir, MIDA has prepared an annual report of Japan investment in each sector in the Malaysia. According to the annual report provided by MIDA, the Japanese company has invested a lot of capital in the use of Malaysian raw material such as rubber and others. From this information, it will be used as a reference by the Ministry of Trade and Industry to do any change or improvement in this industrial policy.
For the next part is implementation strategy of the policy. Implementation is the process that turns strategies and plans into actions in order to accomplish strategy objectives and goals. Government must review the existing industrial policy and the strategy for its implementation if the sector's contribution to gross domestic product (GDP), for instance, is to be enhanced. The latest Ghana Business Development Review report prepared by the University of Ghana Business School (UGBS) has said. In this regard, there is an urgent need for government to hit the call that AGI has been making since 2015 for a review of the Ghana Industrial Policy and its implementation program, known as the Industrial Sector Support Program, as well as put in place the necessary measures and resources for its full and effective implementation. The industrial policy, which was launched on June 1, 2011, was designed to help expand productive development and technological capacity in the manufacturing sector, promote agro-based industrial development and spatial distribution of industries in order to achieve a reduction in poverty and income inequalities. Generally, the policy is aimed at ensuring that our industrialists are able to offer a high quality and competitive products that enable them to gain access to the global market. Actual implementation of the industrial policy was to be effected through an Industrial Sector Support Program (ISSP), which was to be implemented over a 5-year period. The Association of Ghana Industries (AGI) has constantly reminded successive governments to fully implement the policy that it argues can turn the fortunes of the economy around.
Last but not least, the evaluation of the effectiveness of the policy is based on the import substitution industrial development strategy. So, the main purpose was to develop local industries to manufacture goods that were previously imported by other countries. For example, our country will manufacture goods like halal food to other countries for Muslim people. The government implemented economic realism by developing an industrial policy, where it is to protect the local industry and also give an incentive for foreign companies with a smaller scale. From that, most of the foreign companies were attracted with Malaysian economy. We can see through 1917, average consumer price of product increased to 125% for the world market price. It is because of the implementation of import substitution policy. Next, the local industry was experienced an insignificant growth, so that the government was had to loosen its IC industrialization policy. Clearly, the import substitution strategy was failed. Because of that, the Malaysian government lowered tariffs and quotas on import goods to decrease the cost of living. Then, the government tried market liberalism by developing new industrialization policy. It gave a favorable investment climate to the private sector. The main strategy of liberalism and economic realism allowed Malaysian government to provide investment incentives to foreign private entrepreneurs.
partners should seek to support new activity and growth, responding to changes in the global market rather than trying to reverse shrinking sectors. This is more likely to support growth over the longer term. For example, while there may be justification for supporting growth of specific activities within manufacturing, the sector as a whole has been declining in employment terms over the longer terms. Demand for skills has changed with this economic shift. The general shift, as highlighted in City's Outlook 2018, has been towards increased demand for interpersonal and analytical skills. Individuals with these skills are likely to find it easier to adapt in the changing economy and access employment opportunities. Nurturing these types of skills is also likely to support business and productivity growth. Past strategies have succeeded to greater and lesser degrees in identifying areas' distinctive strength and asset, but this alone is not sufficient justification for public sector's intervention or in identifying the most effective way to unlock growth. Having a large number of firms in the creative industries or help, for example, tells you a little about the case for intervention. Assets may include universities and other local institutions, local partnerships, specific expertise, or concentration of activity, while barriers may include skills shortage, lack of appropriate business space, and lack of coordination between complementary businesses.
For the next part is recommendation. For the first recommendation is develop a long-term strategy. Efforts to create a national system of industrial assistance to improve the manufacturing performance of smaller companies should recognize the importance of creating a coherent system and not just increasing the number of assistance facilities and service providers. Appropriate elements of centralized coordination and control in conjunction with decentralized and distributed management and direction are needed to create an efficient, comprehensive system of assistance resources. Although many of the elements of a national industrial assistance system exist, and initial steps at coordination and cooperation are developing, for instance, through an IST State Technology Extension Partnership program, the reality of a cohesive national system is a long way off. To be effective, a national system of industrial assistance must become an integral part of the manufacturing community, which requires continuous support over many years. A long-term strategy for deploying, operating, and funding a national system in the context of changing economic and political realities must be developed. The goal of the system should be to ensure that assistance is available to any company that requests it. Secondly is an expansion should be governed by quality, not quantity. A national system of assistance can only be successful if it is supported by and responsive to the customer base, and manufacturers will only support it if they believe the advice they get is high quality, with the long-term objective is mind of providing access to assistance for any manufacturer who wants it. The emphasis must remain on ensuring that high-quality assistance is provided. To rapid expansion of the MTC program, for instance, or other forms of industrial assistance program risk compromising service quality for two main reasons. A mechanism is needed to initiate the development of future assistance centers by building on the experience and lessons learned from current MTCs and other programs. Recognizing these constraints, the committee recommends that expansions of the current MTC program and other federal initiatives should be planned carefully with the aim of developing a comprehensive national industrial extension system within 3 to 5 years based on a strategy of learn as we go.
As conclusion, there are many interests that we can see from the industrial policy that are framed to the country. Industry in Malaysia has a long way to go in the future. Besides, implementation of industrial policies include strategies and measures that can bring Malaysia into the era of an industrialized nation and thus become the core of developed nation. Each policy implemented has its own advantage and disadvantage. Through this, the growth of the Malaysian economy will be further driven by growth in the export sector based on outward-looking industrialization strategies. How far this will go depends on the ability of Malaysian manufacturers to maintain and enhance their ability to compete in the challenge international. Ongoing process of critical review and evaluation and technicism from similar new economies must be taken count on future action.